Hello and welcome to another video by Day Night Gaming. In this video we're going to be reviewing the video game known as Lost Ark for the PC. Lost Ark is an isometric, free-to-play MMO. It is co-developed by Tripod Studio and Smilegate RPG and was first released in South Korea on December 4th of 2019. Lost Ark was later brought to Russia and Japan in 2020, and recently Amazon localized it for all of Europe and North America with an early access for this game that started on February 8th of 2022 and an official launch on February 11th. Now before I begin, I must preface that I am not affiliated with Tripod Studio, Smilegate RPG, or Amazon in any shape or form, and that this is not a sponsored video. And please understand that this review is from my own point of view and is completely subjective, and opinions may vary from person to person. With all the disclaimers out of the way, let me discuss the gameplay itself. Like stated earlier, Lost Ark is an MMO that uses a top-down isometric view. While it's easy to compare Lost Ark to Diablo and Path of Exile due to this isometric view, it definitely plays more like an MMORPG. Most traditional action RPG games like Diablo focus mostly around combat and are very light on story and community. As such, most ARPGs have the player usually in their own instance for most of the game, smashing through hordes upon hordes of enemies for hours on end. Lost Ark has a much more different approach. For the majority of the storyline, which by the way seems it can take anywhere from approximately 15 to 30 hours to complete, has you running from point A to point B with little to no action involved. You as the player level up from 1 to 50, mostly by completing quests. Talk to this NPC, then run to the next NPC, then talk to another NPC, and maybe kill 3 monsters, and then talk to another NPC to complete the quest. Another point that this differs from traditional ARPGs is that games like Diablo have randomly generated maps, whereas Lost Ark has most of its whole world pre-generated like most traditional MMOs would have. So first I would like to discuss the story elements of Lost Ark. Once again, I must reiterate that the following is formed from my own personal view and is completely subjective. But from my opinion, the story is extremely boring and slow. After about 5 hours in, I was tempted to start skipping cutscenes and dialogue, as the writing was hard to sit through. After beating the story, I probably remember at most maybe 1% of the character names that I met along the way. And aside from a few major set pieces, I vaguely remember most of the story that I played through. I understand the overall gist of the story, but a lot of the continents that I traversed are a blur, and I can only recall the overall theme of the environment. Now granted, I skipped most of the side quests and only focused on the main story quest during my playthrough. I just tried my best to get through the game. I just couldn't be bothered to do any of that extra stuff. I actually fell asleep at the keyboard numerous times due to the sheer boredom I was experiencing. I literally had to struggle to get through those 15 to 30 hours of story, and where it should have taken me a few days to hammer through, it basically took me over a week because I either fell asleep at the keyboard or I had to log out and do literally anything else. Next, I want to move on to the gameplay. Now once again, what I'm about to say is from my own opinion and completely subjective, but the combat pre-level 50 is absolutely boring. While playing through the storyline, players basically run past all enemies while they go from point A to point B, and any enemies that must be killed, which is few and far between, literally die in 1 or 2 hits, while at the same time pose no threat as their weapons hit the player like a wet noodle. Keep in mind, this is from the perspective of playing through the story, which is all pre-level 50. After reaching level 50 and reaching a certain point in the story, players can start their endgame journey. At this point, if the player chooses to engage in those systems, the difficulty then dramatically increases, and so does the intensity of the gameplay. This is where the fun begins. Now this comes in the form of endgame activities like instant dungeons, timed events scattered around the world, like boss fights. There's a lot to do after hitting 50 that can keep players engaged for a very long time. Sadly, it takes a long time to get to this point, and a lot of players will probably quit before they get to experience this. I know this because I almost quit multiple times while traversing the story. Every time I logged out, I considered uninstalling the game, and only pushed through so that I could make this video review. Now I would like to discuss the character creator. You as a player can pick from a set of classes, but it is important to note that as of creating this video, all classes are generated gender lock. What that means is you cannot have a female warrior or a male mage or assassin. Now, martial artists and gunners have male and female versions, but their advanced classes are still gender locked. While there may be a few overlapping playstyles, the male versions still play different than the female version. There are more classes to be introduced in the future, so things can be different if you're watching this at a later date. Now, unlike Diablo and Path of Exile, in Lost Ark, you can actually get to design the facial features of your character. It is a fairly robust system where you can make many different changes. You can adjust many different aspects, but in the end, more often than not, due to the camera angle this game usually is played in, most of the minute changes will probably be obfuscated and hard to see from the bird's eye view. Still, it's nice that this option is even in the game. Now let me address the elephant in the room. This game is a free-to-play game, and as such has monetization baked into it. There are many systems in place to entice players to spend money in the cash shop that go way beyond just cosmetic outfits. It basically has a lot of standard fare mobile game aspects built intrinsically into the systems. Things like housing tech trees where players can research and upgrade their housing plot. These tech trees will cost in-game currency to upgrade, as well as real-time wait systems that can take hours or even days. But of course, this time gate can be bypassed if the player spends crystals, which is a form of monetized game currency. Present a problem, and then present the solution through money. Standard fare, mobile game monetization. There are many advantages that can be purchased with real-life currency, and even things like cosmetics, mounts, and ships purchased in the store can have actual in-game advantages, which further incentivize spending real money. You can even trade these monetized purchase currencies for in-game currency to help you strengthen your gear and help you advance in the game. While there are many players who often enjoy engaging with mobile game type monetization, I wanted to quickly cover this as there are players out there that might find this as a deal breaker when deciding if they want to play a game or not. I do not want to beat around the bush. While it is entirely possible to play Lost Ark without spending any money at all, I am under the impression that the way the game company presents the game systems is extremely predatory. Put in-game problems that will slow a player's progress and then sell them the solution, like stated before. So if you are a player that is adverse to this type of monetization, I definitely advise to avoid Lost Ark like the plague. But if you're okay with these type of systems, then the game is free to play, so I do recommend at least downloading and trying the game to see if this game is for you or not. Now, this game definitely will not appeal to everyone, and there is a possibility that a lot of players who play the game will not be able to slug through the storyline and leveling process of 1 to 50. But it's free, so it doesn't hurt you to at least try it out, provided you're okay with the mobile game type monetization. So now I'd like to close out my review with some overall takeaways. First off, the main story quest is absolutely boring, with only a few grand set pieces to remember. Leveling from 1 to 50 is extremely tedious because the gameplay loop is unengaging during this time. Then again, after reaching level 50 and beginning the end game grind is when Lost Ark really reaches its stride and becomes enjoyable. Now, gender lock classes can be a bit annoying, but at least the character creator makes up for that. And lastly, due to the free-to-play nature of the game, there are some egregious monetization tactics employed which can make or break the game for some players. Overall, in my opinion, treat this as a free-to-play mobile phone game that is actually played on your computer instead of on the phone. So if you absolutely love mobile phone RPG games and have always wanted to play something like that on the PC, then I recommend heading over to Steam and downloading Lost Ark. Thank you, hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, consider hitting that thumbs up, hitting that subscribe button, and ringing that bell for future notifications on videos that I might be posting in the future. And in case you're interested in supporting the channel even more, I do have a merch website at streamlabs.com/DNGdangerous/merch. And until next time, take care. Goodbye.